Hello everyone, I hope you guys are doing well and your studies are going in full swing. Now just a few days remaining for your CFA level 1 May 26 exams, and I'm sure you have put in a lot of efforts. However, this is a different type of an exam, a computer based exam, a fully MCQ based exam. Even the scoring over here is going to be a scaled scoring. So there are a lot of questions that are there in every student's mind, and we even had a session with our students where we discussed quite a few of these points, and based on that I thought that I'll give you a very quick summary and an important roadmap on what you should be doing over the next few days and what are the things that you kind of need to remember essentially. So invest this time, watch this video till the end, and you'll get complete clarity on what needs to be done over the next few days just before your exam. So first of all, when you look at the most common question over here is mocks. How many mocks should one give, and what is the ideal scoring range to assure kind of a passing? Now I'll address this question in two ways. First of all, is mocks required to be given? Preferably yes. The number of mocks are not as important, but like everything for MCQ, the more the better. But even if you have given let's say the one or two mocks, the CFA Institute would have given that along with your ecosystem. So if you have given even that, I would say that is sufficient. Just doing multiple mocks just for the sake of increasing the number of mocks does not really work. But working on, let us say, the problem areas that you might have found in the mocks, maybe time management, maybe a particular subject where you kind of face difficulty, is what is the essential learning out of the mocks. So I would say that if possible, at least give 2 mocks preferably, but anything beyond that is a bonus. But 2 mocks at least from the CFA Institute is something that you should try to give. Now the score range. Now this is a very contentious topic, but a lot of students want to know that how much should be their ideal score in order to kind of get an assured passing. In general, there is no direct indication given by the CFA Institute or anywhere, but typically where you would say we would look at getting around a 70% type of a score, which is almost certainly translated into, let us say, a student passing. But even if you are in your 60s, you still have a fairly good chance, because remember, you are giving a mock a few days or weeks before your exam, and hence you have a fairly good chance for improving. But again, there is no set rule, but I would say that if you have scored 60 and above, you are in a fairly good place. If you have scored less, again, you should be able to find out areas where you made a mistake. Especially you would have certain subject areas or concepts where you struggle. That should be your focus areas. Okay, next is the revision strategy. Now as you come closer to the exams, this is not a last few days or let's say a week. This is not like a typical CA intermediate or a CA final exam where you need to focus a lot more on memory, because those papers were more descriptive papers. These are more concept driven papers, and hence when you look at your revision strategy, I would say that at least in the latter part, as you come closer to the exam, you should dedicate, if possible, a day for your for 5 papers, another day for another 5 papers, and maybe among those 5 papers, ethics should get a much more higher share. So just 2 or 3 days before your paper, try to dedicate more time at least for the revision. So on the exam day, you will feel a little lighter. You don't have to do a lot of stuff, just kind of brushing through formulas, brushing through concepts. The day before that, you do 5 subjects. The day before that, another 5 subjects. You don't need to write any mocks in the last 1 or 2 days, because the idea of a mock is to kind of get your score, see your areas of improvement. You are only in the last 2 or 3 days, in which case, more than writing a mock, it is more important that you can at least brush up on the concepts. Yes, if you have, let's say, 6 or 7 days remaining before your exams, and if you have not written a mock, then probably writing a mock helps. Again, you can improve your score because you still have some time to prepare. But the last 2 or 3 days, I would say, should be exclusively focused on revision, and this is concept level revision more than MCQ practice. MCQ practice can be done before that, but the last 1 or 2 days should be more for brushing up of the concepts. Unlike your CA exams, where you kind of keep on turning the pages and try to read everything possible till the very last minute that you enter into the exam hall, that should not be a strategy that you do for CFA, because this is it's a much more longer exam. It's not it's not a 3-hour exam. It is going to be 2 hours 15 minutes, then a break, then another 2 hours 15 minutes on the same day, which means it is highly possible that by the end of the second session you have a lot of fatigue, and hence I would strongly recommend that 1 hour of additional sleep will help you a lot more than 1 hour of additional study. So your last day, the pre-exam day, would be just brushing through the formulae and keeping yourself light. The day before you can study. Earlier days, obviously you push your limits, but on the day of the exam and up, I would rather say from the night before the exam, you kind of wind down a little. Okay. A very important problem that is faced by students is on ethics, and this is one of the heavyweight topics of the CFA Institute. And for ethics, more than the concepts, I mean, I believe that those general guidance and the principles of you would have read, but the more you practice, the better you get. Maybe the CFA ecosystem, maybe the CFA curriculum, whatever, where you get more sources of practice, you get a better knack of an ethics case on, let us say, practicing more. So ensure that at least over the last 1 week or the last few days, you give a disproportionately higher weightage to practicing ethics. Most of the students cannot say that I'm fully convinced with ethics, because even every case is different, and unlike a FSA or a fixed income or a alternative or a derivative paper, the solution over here you cannot say with conviction, because you have to even learn the elimination technique. If you are not able to identify and narrow down into a single MCQ, how do you eliminate one of them? Then you have remaining 2, which has a 50% probability, and how do you use that elimination technique as well? For ethics, the more you read, the more you practice is helpful. For the other 9 subjects, focusing more on the formulae concepts right now. For ethics, more of practice. The more you can practice, the better it is. Sources can be your existing material that you have, the CFA ecosystem, the CFA curriculum, and if you have done Schweser, that has a decent size of MCQs. But I would say for ethics is one area where I would want you to go little overboard. It is fine that you find new cases, those cases may not be repeated, but the more you practice those cases, you get a hang of identifying the right MCQ rather than just reading the ethical standard per se. Okay, the exam difficulty versus the practice MCQs. Now, this is a very common problem that you say that if you look at the Schweser or your whatever material you have referred, you see in that material the MCQs that are there, they're relatively simpler as compared to the main exam MCQs. If you look at the CFA ecosystem, the online access that you have, those MCQs are slightly higher above the main exam. However, the Schweser practice set, or let's say the premium practice set questions, are usually aligned with the CFA exam MCQs. But I would like to have a word of caution over here. With the introduction of scaled marking, the CFA Institute, what it has done is, it will have a library of questions from which a particular paper will come, and your paper will be different from the paper of your friend who is giving. So if your paper is much more difficult, maybe they will give you credit and your scaled score will be adjusted upward accordingly. If your friend's paper is easier, they will again kind of apply scale scoring and their marks would be adjusted lower accordingly. The process over here is not very transparent, so we do not know. However, we can tell you that an easier paper is not something that should take you overboard, because scale scoring will apply, and a difficult paper should not give you a panic attack again, because scale scoring will apply. There have been cases where our past students have kind of cried their heart out after the paper, saying that it did not go well, and they've scored even 1800 plus. So that is a very clear thing, that in this scale scoring environment, looking at the level of difficulty and trying to match that is not going to work, because most of the times if it is much more difficult, that scale scoring percentage will kind of adjust it accordingly. It's much more easier to adjust it accordingly, but it will not be as direct as your direct Schweser practice module. I mean your theory one, maybe the practice set would be much more closer. Having said that, even if I look at the time management, I will still have, let's say, 90 marks, 90 MCQs and 135 minutes, which means I approximately have to complete every MCQ in around 1.5 minutes. Some of them will be done in around 30 seconds, some of them will take around 2 to 3 minutes. I will not want to sit with a timer for every MCQ. Some of them will take more time, some of them will take lesser time. We should have ideally proper targets. Like for example, there's 90 MCQs, around 30 MCQ target if I keep, should be done in around 40 to 45 minutes. 60 MCQs should be done around 55 to 60 minutes, so that you are in a, sorry, not 55 to 60, around 85 to 90 minutes. So first 30, so it's a 135 minutes, 90, so 30 will be at 45, 60 will be at 90, and then 135. So I will keep a 5 minute buffer. So maybe instead of 45 at 40 minutes, instead of 90 at maybe 85 or 80 minutes, so that you have some time available with you. Because when you are going to solve, there will be certain questions where you may not be very confident, in which case you are given an option to flag that question. While flagging, ensure that you don't flag everything that you see, because you might be a little jittery, because if you come back and everything is flagged, what will you kind of ultimately select? And hence, have some confidence in your ability. If you are reasonably certain, don't even flag it. Flag only those MCQs which you think at the end you might not have more than 5-10 minutes. If you have that time, if you want to revisit them and think corely on that, just flag those MCQs properly. Now, another questions that we repeatedly get is theory versus numerical MCQs. What is the sequence? I will say, don't decide your sequence considering theory versus MCQ, numerical. So your paper largely is not going to be a numerical number crunching paper. There would be certain questions which will involve numerical calculations, but there will be a lot of questions which will require concept based application. Now, whether you call it as theory or whether you call it as a case study or a concept based is debatable, but tracking your brain said this is numerical, so I will do it now, this is not numerical, I'll do it later, is going to unnecessarily waste your time. So what you should do is, you will take a particular let's say MCQ set that is getting started, do it in a sequence. If you find it a particular thing difficult, you can kind of select something and flag it so that you can come back later. However, don't selectively say that I will do theory first or numerical later, numerical first, theory later. It is not at all a good strategy to kind of look at it as theory versus numerical. On the other hand, when you are looking at, let's say, the subject wise sequence, they will not give you subject wise breakup, but you will get a sense of which subject is going on. I would suggest that subjects like ethics should be done somewhere in the middle of that relative paper, of that respective paper, because ethics requires peaceful reading. At the end, if you have less on time or you have more fatigue, you will not be able to kind of give due weight to those respective words or cases, and hence ethics requires proper reading. So I would do it at the center of that paper. I will not even start with ethics, because if ethics appears at the beginning and I start with that, this is one area where I don't get complete confidence. Unlike, let's say, fixed income, fixed income is not a good example, maybe alternative investment or FSA, where I will have much more confidence in my answers. Ethics is something which will not give me as much confidence, and these exams are a lot more of your momentum play. That is, if you're playing the momentum well, if you're going in the right direction, in the right momentum, you're able to, like in a cricket or in a game, the better the momentum, the better the form, the better you strike the ball. And hence, if you are getting the initial questions correct, you are getting that confidence, it is much more likely that you will do it properly. If you're not very confident in a few subjects, like the difficult subject, let's say quants, for most of these people, the idea is, okay, sorry, I want to leave quants. No, that is not the right way. See, we don't know that institute considers if you get 0 in quants and if you get everything higher in the other places, it may not be sailing well with the institute. So what I would say is, rather than leaving a subject altogether, you identify the easier parts of that subject. Like in even quants, you have areas where you have the arithmetic mean, geometric mean, harmonic mean. You have, okay, yes, hypothesis, sampling might be a little tricky. So little tricky, it is very tricky, yes, but remember, quants has a relatively lower weight, around a 5 to 10% weightage approximately, and even in that lower weight, there are around 10 odd readings. So every reading will maximum come for one MCQ, maximum. Some of the readings may not even be tested, which means there is a very high probability that sampling, hypothesis, etc., where you are facing a problem, will hardly come for 2 or 3 MCQs. And fearing that you have left the entire quants. No, there are a lot of areas in quants which are relatively scoring. So focus on getting in those subject areas, certain areas which you think are your scoring areas, you do them properly, and then the other areas you can probably just read the important formulas and proceed. Like even in fixed income, you have a good 19-20 readings over there, but the latter part of the readings pertain to credit risk. They are relatively manageable. The earlier readings, basics of fixed income, relatively manageable. Even the starting parts which pertain to yield or duration are manageable. There may be some readings in the middle where you have convexity or maybe some other complex areas, or maybe at the end, maybe asset-backed securities. But out of the 20 readings, if around 8 to 10 you are comfortable, that's great. And for the others, you don't leave it. You just kind of glance through the important things, because a lot of times you end up getting a direct question, sir, but will I get direct question? Or they are asking you a question which you have to solve in 1.5 minutes. Read, understand, select in 1.5 minutes. You think they can ask you rocket science in 1.5 minutes? generally know. And hence a lot of questions you will be amazed when you see in the exams are much more direct questions on application of your concepts. Further, one of the institute's favorite ways to kind of trick you is putting you in a word play where they say which of the options is most likely, which is the true one, which is least likely, which is a false one. And if you kind of rush through reading that, you are going to select a wrong option. So be very attentive in the option you are, because they have not given you one correct answer and two random other answers. They have given you well thought of two answers. So if you are rushing into it, you will always see that some of the option that you have, you see that, oh, what I've calculated, I see it in the answer. That does not invariably mean that that is the right answer. They might have seen a particular thing that students make a mistake and they kind of devise their options accordingly. So ensure that you are very attentive in that moment when you are solving an MCQ, you are in that and in that MCQ only. Can I skip topics or subjects? As I said, I would prefer that in a particular subject, skipping an entire subject is not a good idea at all. Finding easy low-hanging fruit, as you call, in a subject is a good idea, and for those chapters you do it properly. For the other chapters, reading the important concepts, reading the formula, having a broad understanding, watching revision videos. For example, you have shared revision videos for a lot of topics. Watching revision videos and getting a broad idea should be your appropriate thing. And the last and the most important thing is the mindset that you carry into the exam hall. Remember, a lot of you might have already given some professional exams in some form or the other, like a CA intermediate or a CMA or something like that, and CFA exams are conceptually very demanding, but they are MCQs. There is no negative marking over here, and hence there are even 3 options. They don't even have 4 options over here, and hence the passing is also close to 50%. Now if you have seen any CA or a CMA paper, you nowhere come close to that 50%, and you've cleared that. So this exam cannot be so difficult that you will not be able to clear. So go with that positive bent of mind, go with that positive frame of mind, give yourself positive affirmations, and ensure that half of the battle is in your mind. If you are able to navigate that, there will be certain MCQs, no matter what anyone tells you, no matter how much you have prepared, which will be a little challenging. Your job is to kind of navigate that and go further into, there would be a lot of other MCQs which you will be able to solve. You don't get fixated into those MCQs which you are not able to solve. Focus more on those MCQs which you can. Typically, out of the 180 MCQs, if you are around 110 to 120, we have seen that that is a fairly good cutoff that you can think of. Though with the scale scoring, no one can say that with confidence, but I would say around 110 to 120 MCQs, if you are able to get it correct, you are in a much high probability of clearing. Also on the exam day, you ensure that you keep your passport with you, you keep your calculator with an extra pair of batteries, and you know how to change the batteries as well with you, because you don't want the calculator to malfunction at the end. You will be given a paper, you will be given a pen at the exam center. Reach at least an hour or so before your exam, so that you are mentally in a very calm and a composed position. When you go to the paper, ensure that you don't see what others are doing, and if others are ending early, you don't know stuff. Nothing of that. You are fighting your own battle. You are playing your own game. So ensure that you give it your best, and wish you all the very best for your exams. Go out there, give it your best, and I'm sure you will make yourself, your parents, all of us really proud. Wish you all the very best. God bless you all. Take care, good luck, and keep rocking.